Welcome, everybody, to Knights of the Gaming Table Chat, Episode 0, where we're going to bring you video game news from all over the place, as seen by a couple of video game players here. My first guest tonight and regular on the show is going to be Jeffy Pop, my brother, my real brother from the same mother. Jeff, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I am Jeff, Jeffy Pop. I was a software developer, and I am now a technical product manager. Let's see, what else do I have? I've been gaming most of my life. Me and my brother have been gaming for quite a while. We used to watch each other play games growing up, like write our own player guides as we're going through Final Fantasy 1 and crap like that. Most of my gaming hours have probably been spent in MMOs like EverQuest and World of Warcraft. I've been streaming on Twitch for probably about 3.5 years or so. What else do you want to know, my brother?
I think that's good for the moment. You also stream for Extra Life.
Oh yes, I do. 50% of anything I get raised on Twitch goes straight towards Extra Life.
And how long have you been doing Extra Life? 7 years? This your 7th year?
6 or 7, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, glad to have my bro in the house. Next up is Gaston. Swift as Gaston. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Swift as Gaston or lifts like Gaston, depending on which platform. Considering I forgot my login for lifts like Gaston on Twitch. Been gaming for a little over 20 years. Started when I was like 6 or 7. Didn't get serious until I was in middle school. Started actually with Final Fantasy X is when I really started getting into video games. Started playing a lot. Been dating my girlfriend for 3 years. We just bought a house together. You can see part of it behind me here. It's the only room that's kind of in disrepair still, but we're working on it. We love traveling together, playing video games together. It's great. And then other than that, just finishing my degree, so hopefully I can work from home and be able to travel some more.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I've known Gaston now for probably 2 years, right? Virtually, anyway.
I think so.
Year and a half, 2 years when I first stumbled into the Fortis Core channel, I think.
Yeah, I know it's been a year and a half. It's probably closer to 2 years. Yeah, because I've been on 2 of your birthday streams.
Yeah, that's probably about right then.
Yeah.
Right on. I'm glad to have you here as well. And for those of you who are regulars in my chat, I am Sir Mr. Clean. I am a variety streamer here on Twitch, raising money for Extra Life as well. This is my 8th year doing Extra Life, and my goal this year is hopefully to get myself to $10,000 raised total in the past 8 years. We'll see if we can do that. I've been married and been a father. Been married for 15 years, almost 15 years. Actually, next week is 15 years. And then been a father for probably 18 of those years. I have a 19-year-old son whom I adopted, and have 2 girls too. I've been a gamer for over 33 years. I think I was 6 or 7 when we got the regular Nintendo, and we started playing Mario Brothers, and I got totally hooked in adventure games by playing The Legend of Zelda, which then I eventually tattooed onto my body because I loved it so much. I'm a software and game developer. I've been doing that for over 20 years. In fact, I'm actually going to San Diego on Friday morning to do some top secret game dev work for the weekend. So that's pretty cool. And I've been streaming on Twitch for over 4 years now. We just had our 4-year anniversary stream in May. So yes, welcome everybody who's here today. This is how it's going to go. We've got some topics that we're going to talk about. Usually we'll do some sort of a small introduction. This one's probably a little bit bigger because it's our first episode. Then we'll talk about what we're all playing currently, or maybe we just finished, or we plan to start playing. We'll try to go through that pretty quick. And then we'll get into some news stories. Tonight, we're going to focus mostly on some of our reactions from E3, things that we're excited about, things that were really cool, what we're looking forward to, maybe what we're not looking forward to, what we thought kind of failed. And then we'll hopefully get to some other conversations like this whole games as a service thing that's super popular and everybody seems to be making games as a service. And then maybe we'll talk a little bit about whether or not we feel gamers are entitled or acting entitled. And then we might have a couple bonus topics after that. So let's dig in and start by what we are currently playing. So let's start with Gaston.
Currently, actually, I just picked up Valhalla on Switch. BA-11 Paul -A. It's kind of, I guess you would classify it as a visual novel. You play as a bartender. You're just kind of doing your job, interacting with the customers. They've got some interesting stories so far. I'm only a couple hours into it, so I haven't gotten too far into it. But it was $15, and I'd been wanting it. It's got a cool kind of like cyberpunk art style going for it. Got some really nice, relaxing music, so I'm enjoying it so far.
Very cool.
Outside of that, I just beat Persona 5 last week, I think it was.
Right on.
That took me 130 hours. That is, let me tell you.
Nice.
If you like RPGs, that is the game for you. It is hands down one of the best games that I have played ever. Like, I would put it up there with Witcher 3, and anybody who has talked to me any at all knows how much I love The Witcher 3. So Persona 5 is fantastic. I'm going to be starting a new game plus because I want to get the Platinum Trophy. Other than that, now that I'm finished with my house remodel, I'm hoping to get back into Final Fantasy 14 with the new expansion.
Right on.
And get back to Fallout 76.
Cool. Hey, I have a quick question then. Should I wait for Persona 5R before I dive into Persona? I mean, forget that I have this huge backlog of games that I need to play that's been funded. If I'm just a person who's been thinking about getting into Persona, should I pick up a used copy for $15 or $20 or wait for Persona 5R?
I would say go ahead and pick it up. You can pick it up brand new for $20 because it's now.
Oh, that's true. It's on
a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, they just made
the classic or whatever.
PlayStation hit. Yeah, so brand new, $19.99. I would say it's worth it, especially because we still don't have the Western release for Persona 5R, and it's looking like P5R is going to be a pretty different. I mean, the story overall will be kind of the same, but it's looking like they're adding quite a bit and changing a few of the paths and decisions along the story. So I would think it would be worth it to get it, especially if you've been looking to get into the Persona series. $20 and it'll definitely last you until whenever the Western release is.
Right. Okay. That's good to know. Yeah, I keep forgetting that we don't have a release date for the Western release yet. So.
Yeah, and I was kind of the same because I picked it up. I think it was like a week after they announced P5R, and they put it on sale for I think $20-$25 on the PlayStation Store online. So I just picked it up then, and I don't regret it at all.
Cool. All right, Jeffy Pop, what are you currently playing?
I'm playing a couple games right now, mostly Apex Legends with friends. We do that 3 to 4 times a week, probably, usually late at night. I'm playing Crosscode. It's like a throwback 16-bit RPG, similar to like Secret of Mana or Legend of Zelda. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of puzzles in it, which can get frustrating sometimes. It's a fun single-player game, though, on Steam. And then actually, probably a couple months ago, I beat Octopath Traveler, and I had like 120 hours into that. So I'm trying to get my brother to play it now. Join his backlog of games.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
That was one of the best, and like, as far as like bang for your buck, like that game has got a lot to it, and I think I 100%ed it. I did all the extra stuff in it, so it was a fun game.
Yeah, I'm like 25 hours into Octopath, I think. So It'd be cool. It'd be cool to go back to it for sure. Yeah, definitely. Quick question about Crosscode. Talk a little bit about this game because I think it's pretty interesting. It's also coming to Switch. I think either
Yep.
in like a few months. I think it's coming soon to Switch. Right now you're playing it on PC, but it's like a MMO within a game.
Yeah.
So explain
So
that a little bit.
to me, it's kind of like similar to the story of like Ready Player One. So it's like you're playing a character that's inside of an MMO, and so everyone you're interacting with is like an avatar of in the game it's someone else playing this video game with you. So they'll be like, oh, I have to log off now, see you tomorrow or whatever, and that's like part of the storytelling of the game. I don't want to like spoil like who your character is, but it's a very interesting plot and character development that the game has. So it's pretty cool. I'm like 40 hours into it, and probably just over halfway done. So
That's a pretty good deal. It's only $20 on Steam.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Very,
got
very
one
cool.
of these guys to play it as well.
Oh, that matches mine. We're twinsies.
Did you back it on was it Kickstarter or Indiegogo? I noticed it was a crowd-funded project.
Crosscode was?
Yeah.
I didn't back it. I had a friend at work tell me about it.
Oh, gotcha.
So, and I think I'm almost as far as he is now. He hasn't played it in a while, but
Yeah. Wow. Nuts. So guys, if you guys are interested in some of that stuff, you can go follow Jeffy Pop over there at twitch.tv/JeffyPop. He's streaming many days a week. I feel like you're on probably 5 days a week usually. So yeah, go check out my bro Jeffy Pop. As far as me, for those of you who know who are part of the stream normally, I'm playing a lot of Dark Souls right now, and the main reason is because I don't want to lose my ability. Like as I'm learning how to play the game and how to play the bosses, I don't want to lose it. The the thumb coordination, like the dexterity that I'm building. So I'm playing Dark Souls a lot. I've also got Witcher 2 that I'm working my way through. Once we finish Dark Souls, we'll put a lot more time into Witcher 2 so we can get through that game. Playing Kingdom Hearts on the Extra Life for Kids channel. And we're just about, I think tomorrow night when I go back to it, it'll probably finish Riku's story. And then we'll be able to move on and finally put Chain of Memories behind us. Which is actually turning out, like, after I really got into it, like, it turned out to be a really cool game. I'm actually really happy that I decided to play through all of these games so far. And then I started streaming, doing a Final Fantasy marathon. So I've been doing Final Fantasy for 4 years. We've been working our way through the entire series. We beat 12. We haven't done some of the extra stuff we need to do in 12 yet. And then we started up Tactics, and we're probably like 15 hours into Tactics. Maybe a little bit more than that. Maybe more like 20 hours into Tactics. So we'll get back to that too once we finish Dark Souls.
yeah, you haven't played that in a while.
No, and the other sucky thing is during the summer I've got a lot of camping trips and weekend stuff. So like this weekend I'm suddenly going to San Diego, so I'm not going to be playing Witcher 2 this weekend at all, which I'm kind of bummed about. But we'll get through it. We'll get back to it.
You get to be in San Diego though.
Yeah, I'll be inside mostly. So
you can look out at the wonderful weather.
Yeah, I can look at it. No, Aerodash, I'm not going to Comic-Con. I wish I was. I might see some cosplayers on the streets because I will be downtown, but I'm going to be in a co-working space, basically cooped up, working almost nonstop for the whole weekend, from Friday night to Sunday evening. So we'll see. Trying to think. I'm not really playing anything off stream. I was working my way through the Mortal Kombat 10 story. So like on my lunch breaks and stuff, I would just play and try to beat a couple story beats. It's actually a lot more fun than I thought it would be. I didn't want to pick up the new Mortal Kombat until I played through 10, just out of principle, because I'm weird like that. So that's one game I'm playing kind of off stream. I tried a couple other things. I tried playing Dauntless a little bit. It's kind of been tough to get into. I downloaded it on PS4 once it released on consoles. I was trying it out a little bit. I played a little bit on PC as well. I downloaded Frostpunk, and when we get into we're thinking about we might talk a little about the Steam sale and what games we picked up. Let's roll into that next, just really quick. So I picked up Frostpunk. I've been looking at it for a really long time. It's a game that I kind of just want to play as kind of a time waster. And it was only like $15. It was like their 1 year anniversary sale or something. So I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. Actually, I think I picked it up right before the Steam summer sale started. And then I did pick up Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 because they went on sale for like $5 a piece.
You had just been talking about when to get those.
Yeah, and I was like, wait a minute, they're all still $20, but then they both went on sale for 75% off. So I was like, yeah, okay, sure.
That's good.
So I figured I picked them up. I have the boxed version of Baldur's Gate 1, but it's not the enhanced version, so I'd probably have a heck of a time trying to get it to work on my PC anyway.
Oh yeah.
All right, so Swift, did you pick up anything for Steam Summer Sale?
No, not a thing. Actually, I picked up Age of Empires. Was it 2 or 3? Whatever one they had.
Age of Wonders.
Age of Wonders. Yeah, I grabbed that. I don't know when I'll ever have time to play it, but grabbed that, and then that was it. Yeah, I don't know anymore for me, because I've just been using Steam for so long and just picking stuff up over Steam sales for probably 10 years now. I have just about any game that I want, and then I finally got to a point to where I really don't have to wait for sales like I used to have to do. So if there's a game that I want, I tend to just pick it up whenever I'm able or whenever I want to. So I didn't pick anything up on the sale.
Yeah, I find I kind of feel the same way. Like a lot of times they'd have enough sales throughout the year that I usually end up getting the stuff that I need. And then when the summer sale comes, it's like I only buy like one game maybe.
Yeah, and it seems like they have a lot more sales now than they did compared to like when they first started doing like the winter and summer sales. Like now they have daily deals, they have weekend deals, they have developer weekends.
Yep.
I think it was just maybe a month and a half ago they had a huge Square Enix developer weekend. They had a Bethesda weekend not too long ago. So, and I mean, really, most of what I play is the big name developers.
Yeah, totally. What'd you pick up, Jeff?
So I picked up 3 games. Where's my list? Oh, 4 games. 3 games. Just during the Steam sale, I went and bought a physical copy of Dead Cells, which is not part of the Steam sale, but it was during it. So
on Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. So for the Steam summer sale, I picked up Ori and the Blind Forest, Time Spinner, and Hollow Knight. I've heard good things about all of them. More so like Ori and the Blind Forest and Hollow Knight, and just like the art in them is like fantastic. Time Spinner was more like a Metroidvania type game, and I wanted to check it out, and it was on sale for like 30% off, so I picked that up. I don't know when I'm going to get to any of these. Those Battle Royale games really take up a lot of my time. So, one other thing that games that we are playing, me and my brother are playing Gloomhaven. I think we've streamed it like once or twice at his place. So it's probably the best board game I've ever played.
I say the same thing. And
the like return on like the investment and the entertainment is just ridiculous, right? It's $130, $140, but I have another game I'm playing with four of us, me and 3 friends, and we're over like 100 hours into it each, right? So that much entertainment for that much money, that's like,
you're well over 100 hours. Like how many scenarios? You finished more than 50 scenarios, right?
Yeah.
There's 100 scenarios, 90 some scenarios in the game, and you've probably done like 70 or 80 of them, if not closer to all of them. And each one is 90 minutes to 2.5 hours per. So like the amount of time you get in the game is just ridiculous. And it's just crafted so well, and it's tested so well, and everything just works so well.
It has a ton of game pieces with it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, I was on the topic of board games. My girlfriend actually just took me to this local board game shop. It was really big. They had basically like three little um, like buildings or whatever you want to call it. It was in a strip mall. They had three stores right next to each other, and one was just exclusively for like a class that they teach on painting models and all that. The other one was just an area for people to set up and play games, and then they had an area where it was just games. But they didn't have Gloomhaven. That was the one game that they didn't have.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. I think there's another game, Kingdom Death Monster, that's pretty huge, but it's like $300 or $400, and I think it costs that much because there's so many minis. Like there's just they're like the way they did it is they've got a mini for like every potential equipment option you could have for your characters, and so you can basically craft specifically the character that you're using with the right armor pieces, the right weapons, whatever. Paint all of it. It's just everything is very. It's more of a mini game, like it has minis to collect, and then there's this giant like village that you basically create, like a civilization that you create.
That's pretty cool.
And death is like permanent, so if you lose people, you can like lose the character you're playing with, and then you have to like start with one of your other villagers that you've, made through process of sexual stuff. So it's pretty intense, and if you play it right and you get lucky, because it's all dice rolling, so if you get lucky, you can have a really flourishing village with all kinds of crazy people that have all these bonuses they get at birth and all kinds of stuff. But then you can also roll like crap and die a couple missions in, and your village is completely wiped out, and you have to start over. So
Yeah, it's a very unforgiving game.
yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah. But it's
That's
still
one reason-
fun.
That's one reason I like Gloomhaven so much, is because there's a lot less chance, right? With rolling dice, like you're, I mean, you're rolling dice, like, right? With Gloomhaven, you get cards and you play the cards, and like you kind of create your own like strategy and like how you want to play your character, and you know exactly like what's in your deck that you're gonna move and attack. So a lot less like, oh, I rolled a one again. Looks like my head gets snapped. Like I'm dead. Sweet.
Right. Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's get into our first topic for tonight, which is E3 reactions. So E3 was a little over a month ago now. All the dust has kind of settled, and now Comic-Con's gearing up. So let's kind of talk about what we saw at E3, what we thought was interesting, what we thought was underwhelming. I'm gonna start this off with Gaston.
I guess I'll start with what I thought was underwhelming, just because there wasn't much that I thought was underwhelming. I felt like overall it was a really good E3. A lot of the developers came out with some really interesting, really good looking games. It was a little disappointing to not hear a little bit more about, which obviously Sony wasn't there, so we didn't hear about PS5. But Microsoft also kind of didn't reveal as much about Project Scarlet as I thought that they would. So that was kind of disappointing. And then EA, man, outside of Jedi Fallen Order, I felt like they just kind of like hardcore flopped. I mean, Fallen Order looks really good. A few of the animations were kind of jank, I guess. I don't know, but it is an alpha or beta build or whatever you want to call it. I am glad that they don't give you light and dark choices. I feel like that gives them a lot stronger narrative that they can tell. Gives them a lot more options with telling the story because they can tell the story their way.
Yeah.
As far as things that I'm most excited for on it, Cyberpunk 2077. I think everybody's excited for that. I mean, how cool is it that they got Keanu Reeves?
You're
there?
breathtaking.
And nobody even knew about it. Like,
Mhm.
that's the thing that impresses me most, is that they were able to get Keanu Reeves and it didn't leak. There were no rumors of it. Just boom, there he is. So Cyberpunk, Tales of Arise looked really interesting. That was shown during Microsoft's conference, I believe. I've never played. Actually, I played some of the Tales series, but I played it with a friend, and you can do multiplayer like in the battles and stuff. But I know as far as JRPGs go, it's one of the like longer running series, and this one seems like it's a lot higher quality in the animations and a bit of a different battle style. And then what else was it? Breath of the Wild sequel. I don't think anybody saw that one coming, and Nintendo was just like, "Hey, you want some Zelda? Here you go." And that's on top of Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
So I would say those are probably the three things that I'm most excited for: Cyberpunk, Tales, and Zelda. And then a few of the remakes look pretty cool. Bethesda's conference overall for me was probably my favorite because I really really like Fallout 76. I'm probably like in the minority on that because it's kind of I guess the cool thing to hate on the internet.
Well, Anthem, I think, took some of their
Oh,
some of the
yeah,
hate.
I think Anthem may be king of the hill on the circle jerk of hate.
Yeah.
And I'll admit Fallout 76 was a bit rough at launch, but it definitely didn't deserve half the hate that I felt that I got. But the Nuclear Winter, which I haven't gotten to play yet, but apparently it's really, really good. That seemed really interesting. And then, of course, the story was building up to it. Spoilers. They've got settlers or NPCs back, whatever you want to call them. They've got them coming back. And that's, I think, at the end of summer or I forget when it is. And it might be winter that they've got that coming back. That looked really good. And then Bethesda actually had some new IPs with Deathloop and Ghostwire. Deathloop looked really, really cool. I really like that concept, at least from the video.
And that's the one with the male and the female like kind of chasing each other.
Yeah. Where if I remember, she was trying to kill him, he was trying to escape, and it kept looping through that.
Yeah.
And then they also had Ghostwire, which that studio has done a few other things. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that looked pretty interesting, and I liked that it was set in what looked like modern day Tokyo, because you don't get too many games that are set in modern day.
Cool.
And then, we got to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake, but
yeah,
that's looking like it's really good. The only thing that I'm disappointed with Final Fantasy VII Remake is it is going to be multiple games, so it's going to be tough having to wait
and having to purchase. But if the content is really there, like if they're like, each one of these is going to be like a full-blown Final Fantasy title, like, then I have hope. It's just, can they make it good enough to where you want to spend 3 different Final Fantasy games in that whole world again? Which like, I've played Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus, and I loved being back in the Final Fantasy VII world. So, like, for me, I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, really, I guess it comes down to how good they are. One, overall, but most importantly, how good are they as individual games? And I kind of go back and forth on whether or not I want to get it as it comes out or just wait. Because, I mean, if you get it as it comes out, obviously it's going to be more expensive and you've got to wait. But if you wait, you have to wait anyway. And by that point, people may be spoiling. So.
Yeah. All right.
That's all I've got from E3.
Sounds good. Jeffy Pop.
Yeah, ditto. I didn't watch all of E3. The big things that I saw from it though was Cyberpunk. That was, I can't believe how quiet they kept that whole thing. So it was really freaking cool to see at the end of that, to see Keanu Reeves. Same as Gaston mentioned, Breath of the Wild sequel. That was surprising. I need to actually go back and beat that game as well. I had Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then the Collection of Mana, which I have Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo. Me and my friend would play the crap out of that game since it's multiplayer. Really cool, like Super Nintendo game and being multiplayer, and a RPG game, like sweet. So I'm excited to get that. I want a physical copy, of course, because me and my brother like physical copies.
Yeah.
So
I'm
talking
I'm
about
waiting until
physical,
August.
right?
Yeah, August is when it comes out, so I'm gonna get it then too. I think
So
I thought Collection of Mana was out.
it is, but not physically.
Oh, gotcha.
So really, all I had was Cyberpunk 2077, and then 3 games from my childhood. That's pretty much how that goes.
They're really hitting the nostalgia hard.
feels,
yeah,
yeah.
all the feels.
Isn't that what
Exactly.
everybody's doing nowadays, though?
Basically, I mean, movies are the same way.
sells.
TV shows are the same way.
We say we just had
We're
Lion
just-
King come out. Stranger Things is nothing but an '80s throwback.
Yeah,
Love it.
but it's awesome.
I do, going back to what Gaston said about Tales of Arise, I do remember in high school playing like Tales of Fantasia with friends, right? And it was a cool like JRPG game. And the multiplayer part was very minimal, right? Because it was only during battle where you could like help fight with your other friends and stuff. So I might go check out some of those Tales games because those are fun.
Yeah, I've never played a Tales game.
Usually, you can pick them up either through Humble Bundle or Steam. They usually got one or the other on sale. I picked up a couple of them not too long ago on Humble Bundle, so I'm planning to do the same thing. Play some of them since Arise is coming out, and it's kind of piqued my interest.
Yeah. So I've got kind of a big list. I was going to touch on a couple of the things that I was kind of surprised about ultimately. I'll start with Xbox's conference. Outer Worlds still looks really cool to me. It's from Obsidian, I believe, so they did New Vegas. So it really kind of has a Fallout feel to it in a way, but it looks really cool, and I think it's going to be kind of a surprise hit. That's my thinking, because it wasn't overly talked about, even in the news now. Like, it's not overly talked about. It's not the Cyberpunk of the show. It's not the Final Fantasy VII remake of the show. It kind of went a little under the radar in a way. But all the kind of games outlets that I read about, everybody who went behind closed doors and played it, think it's got a lot of potential and it's going to do really well. So I'm excited to see what happens. Blair Witch, I didn't see coming. Looks freaky as hell. The movie was freaky. The first movie anyway was freaky. I have some friends who couldn't actually watch it because they got sick because of the camera shake.
I didn't know they were making a video game of this.
Yeah.
They only showed like a short teaser on it, I thought.
Yeah, and I was like, when I was watching it, I was like, gosh, this feels a lot like Blair Witch. And then they went to the corner, just like they did with the original trailer of Blair Witch, and there was like a crazy like witch or like girl or a guy in the corner, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly like Blair Witch. And that's what it was. Minecraft Dungeons. I played a bit of Minecraft when it first came out on Xbox 360, but the new Minecraft Dungeons, it has everything that I wish Minecraft had originally, which is basically a dungeon crawling aspect to it. So it basically looks like, did any of you guys play 3D Dot Game Heroes on the PS3? It was kind of like this, Minecraft-y cube characters going through a dungeon. It was like top-down Zelda, but with very cubed looking characters. So that's kind of the feel I got from that. Obviously, Cyberpunk. I was out of my mind when Keanu Reeves showed up. The game itself looks amazing anyway, and based on what I've played so far of the Witcher series, I have very high hopes for this game because the storytelling the guys at CD Projekt Red do is incredible. Xbox streaming, they really didn't talk about it as much as I thought they were going to. I was kind of hoping that they would give some points that might lead us to want to use Xbox streaming like over Google's Stadia, but I really didn't get the feeling that they were like even trying to compete. It was more just like, yeah, we're going to be doing it. This is what you can kind of expect. and I don't think they're going to be coming out before Stadia does. It didn't feel that way anyway. They didn't talk.
Yeah,
They didn't talk as much about Scarlet. I agree with you, Gaston. As I was kind of hoping for some more details. And then a brief tease of Halo Infinite. I've played a couple Halo games. I played Halo 2. I beat Halo 3. I beat Halo ODST.
Reach. Yeah.
And then I played a little bit of Reach. But that's as far as my Halo experience goes. Moving on to EA, I'm kind of in the same boat. Jedi Fallen Order was basically the reason that I watched the EA Play conference, and I like Greg Miller. And then if you're into Apex, like I know my brother is, they had some cool Apex stuff. But outside of that, it was just kind of they were there. That's kind of how I felt. EA showed up.
Kind of their typical sports stuff.
Yeah, and then they did all the sports stuff, which I care at nothing at all about, really. I have been tempted though, because people have said that like there's a couple games that have some really good like career modes and they have a lot of RPG elements, and it might be interesting to get into one of those, and it might pique my interest more for that particular sport. So like if I picked up a Madden game and played through the career mode, or I picked up like an MLB game and played through one of the career modes, it's possible that I could get more into that sport. So if I ever have some free time, right, maybe I'll do that. Bethesda, I always love Bethesda's conferences because I just love so many of their IPs. I love Elder Scrolls. I love everything that it makes. I love Fallout. So I'm always excited, even if it's not like, even if it doesn't blow me out of the water, I still love their conferences because it has all the IPs that I love and I grew up with. Doom was one of the first person shooter games ever created, next to Wolfenstein, but was also id. And I love Doom. It and Quake. They all kind of piqued my FPS interest way back in the 90s. Doom Eternal looks fantastic. It looks like bigger, badder Doom, and that's totally fine with me. Even if it was just more of the same, I think it would be fine with me. But the fact that they're adding in a lot more traversal and movement stuff and some new weapons and grappling hook and just all these cool things make it seem like it's going to be outrageous. Fallout 76, I'm like you, I want to get back to it. I love the Fallout series and I want to get back to it. Let's see, Ubisoft. Division 2 had some cool updates. Jeffy Papa and I have been playing Division 2. We started playing it off stream just because I don't think anybody really cares to watch us play it. So I don't stream it anymore. Watch Dogs Legion was a big surprise for me. I knew there was a Watch Dogs game coming and they'd probably talk about it. I was always interested in the idea of Watch Dogs, but the first two games never got I know 2 especially didn't get a whole lot of critical acclaim. But this one, the technology behind this game looks absolutely incredible. The fact that you can recruit any NPC in the entire game and bring them onto your team, and they all have different kind of abilities and play styles, just makes it seem so crazy and out there that I almost want to try it just because I'm super interested in the idea. But who knows? I probably won't be getting it anytime near release. It'll probably be years later, but at some point I probably would want to go check out that series. Square Enix is another company that I just love. I grew up playing Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior, and the fact that those two companies merged is just crazy. And now they're working together on some of the biggest RPGs ever. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy VIII Remaster we're finally getting, which is crazy, even though I know a lot of people don't like it. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remaster coming to Switch, coming to other systems. My wife and I played the crap out of that game back when it was on GameCube, and we would hook it up using the Game Boy controllers, or the Game Boys as controllers as a second screen. Like, that was just revolutionary, and I wish they would do more of that kind of stuff because it just makes sense. So I'm excited to see what they can do with that on modern consoles. And then the Avengers game, we don't know much about it other than a few story beats that they threw in the trailer. We're supposed to hear more about it this weekend at Comic-Con. So we'll see what it's supposed to be some gameplay. So we'll see what happens, but it's not going to be live streamed. Unfortunately, this weekend. So it'll be kind of after the fact, people talking about it, that kind of stuff. So hopefully it's good. And then we come down to Nintendo Breath of the Wild sequel. Blew my mind. I did not think that we would be seeing that soon. I beat Breath of the Wild. I think I beat it last year on my birthday. So not this past year, but a year ago. Just a fantastic game. So I'm expecting a lot out of the sequel. Hopefully we'll hear more, by the end of the year, maybe in some directs or something as to what's been going on. Probably not, though. Probably won't be till next year till we hear anything. Link's Awakening, plus the Amiibo. I immediately went and pre-ordered them both. So there's nothing that's going to keep me away from Link's Awakening. It was the first Game Boy game I think that I ever actually completed. I think I've only ever actually beaten 2 Game Boy games, that and Metroid 2. But yeah, what?
My problem with that is that is how expensive it is for a game that they didn't have to come up with any content, no like storyline or anything. They just made it look prettier, and they're like, "Hey, we should just do this with all of our games now," and then it's going to be like.
And you know what? Everybody will rebuy them, except you. You're the only one who'll be salty about it. Yeah. No, I agree. I don't think it should be full price. Because
especially since originally it was a Game Boy game. Where
yeah.
It was, were those $30, $25, $30? I don't remember.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't even think it's really that long of a game. So, and as far as we know, nothing. They haven't added anything to it other than the little like dungeon creator. But does that really justify a whole nother like $20 or $30 on the price? I don't know. So we'll see. Ultimate Alliance 3 is out now, and I'm excited for it. I didn't like pre-order it or anything. I haven't been rushing to get it because it's one of those games that I feel like I'll probably get at some point and just take my time with it and just enjoy it, just because I like Marvel characters. And then, of course, Jeff brought up Collection of Mana. I've only played Secret of Mana. I've never beat it. And then I never really put any time into Final Fantasy Adventure, which is basically Secret of Mana 1. Or the Mana game, the first Mana game on the Game Boy. What do you remember? What's the original name of those games?
Second
HR Bandit, thank you for the host. What was that again? Suikoden Sensei. It's not Suikoden. It's
Second Densetsu.
Second. Say that again.
I'll Google it.
Second de Sexy Time de Sensu. All right.
Close. Second Densetsu.
Second Densetsu. Okay. And then Trials of Mana. And then Trials of Mana is getting a remake at the beginning of next year.
That looks really good.
Which actually looks really good, and it looks way better than the Secret of Mana remake that kind of flopped. Because they did like the 3D Secret of Mana remake, and it just apparently was not very good. It wasn't as. It was like if you wanted a better experience and like gameplay experience, play the original, because they just kind of borked up on the gameplay experience in the remake. So that's just what I've heard.
Like Final Fantasy IV when they did the remaster for it.
The 3D one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I played all the way up to Dr. Luigi. I think that's not his name, but I call him Dr. Luigi because it looks like it's Dr. Luigi and his robot. And I could not get past that. Like, it was just so hard. I could not get past it.
I've never played 4, so I don't know.
However, I was really surprised that they had voiceovers in a DS game. I thought that was pretty impressive. So
there weren't too many that they did voiceovers on for DS games.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And then a couple DS games had like pretty good like full motion like FMV type cutscenes and stuff too, which I thought was pretty cool. And then I know 3DS did a lot more, but the DS was a pretty impressive system. It's probably one of my favorite handheld systems, especially the original DS Lite, because it was it was awesome. It was light, and it played Game Boy Advance games as well. Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games and DS games. It was like almost a perfect system.
Yeah, definitely the best handheld system. And well, yeah, I would say it is. Even if you classify the Switch as a handheld system, I would say the DS beats it just because you get DS and Game Boy games.
So, what? Any other last minute E3 reactions before we move on to our next topic?
There wasn't. There was something that you said. Oh, about Division 2. I don't play Division 2, but I did see an interesting story. It was either today or yesterday. But the creator of the Division was doing some surveys and seeing if there was interest in a single player offline.
Yeah, I did hear about
spin-off.
this. Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. So not E3 related, but you mentioned Division 2.
Yeah, totally. No, I'd heard the same thing, and I feel like I don't think I'm far enough yet in the game to make a call if that's something I would play or not. Like a single player story mission type thing.
Yeah, and I think it would also kind of depend on how they structured it. Because if they kept it just like Division 2, I don't really think that the gameplay would be interesting enough to survive in a single player unless the story was really, really.
Yeah, the story would have to be super compelling. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about our next, which actually this Division 2 is kind of a good segue into this. We were going to talk about games as a service and just kind of our views on it and maybe why we think so many games and game companies are using this, and is it a crutch for them to get out less than perfect games on day one, and is that okay or not? So let's talk a little bit. Start with Jeffy Pop. Thoughts on games as a service, games like The Division or Destiny.
Yeah. What's the question?
Well, what do you think about it? Like, games as a service. So there's other games. There's a couple different examples, right? There's like Apex Legends is a game as a service, except they went the free play model, and then they monetize through in-game purchases and loot boxes and things like that. Then there's like Division, where you pay $60 for a full like campaign. It's not just a multiplayer game. There's a full campaign, but then you're buying either add-on content as they have like seasons or something, or some of it's been given to you for free. So just kind of what's your thought about that? Do you think it's a good move for games because lots of games are starting to do it? You have reservations about it, that type of stuff.
I mean, I still miss the days where there was no like streaming stuff. Like I buy a game and I have it, and I like all the games now with DLCs and stuff like that, and then pay for skins and stuff that just doesn't matter. Like people are all over that stuff, but I'm not a fan of those type of games. Like to spend money to get cosmetic stuff. Streaming as a service, or games as a service, like MMOs are similar to that, right? Like you're paying to play this game online with other people. So I'm like, I don't know. It's hard. Like without the internet, none of that's possible, right? Like, and you need a good connection. I don't know. I just miss buying a game, having the physical copy of it, and that's like it, right? But
yeah, it doesn't happen as much as it used to. Like Octopath is a great example of like one and done, and they even said that before it came out. I think they said, no, we're not planning any DLC. We're not, it's you buy the game, everything's in the game.
Right. So yeah, like that's a great example, right? Octopath did such a good job with that game that I didn't find any defects or bugs with it or ways to cheat. I'm sure there are, but like games that are polished and they release them and they're done, right? They don't have all this like opportunity to mess up and then fix it later, right? Like Final Fantasy 14, right? Like they released that thing bombed, and then they're like, oh, let's just remake the game, because like I don't know. To me, that means they don't know what like their market is or their target demographic or like I don't know. I think it takes like a lot of professionalism away from games being developed.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you. Like, I think, and I think you also, since you brought up like Final Fantasy 14, like there's this idea of MMOs, and we all kind of know what MMO means, right? It's like, okay, there's usually a subscription, there's usually paid DLC every year or 2 years or whatever, like World of Warcraft and EverQuest and all these games that kind of came for ESO and Star Wars: The Old Republic and Final Fantasy 14 kind of set this standard of this is what MMOs look like. And then something like Destiny comes out, and they say, okay, so now we're going to release a game that you pay full price for. There's no monthly fee, and you guys can play through this huge campaign, which arguably huge campaign, depending on what you think is big or not, right? I mean, it took me a long time to beat the campaign, but that's because I play games really slow. Um, and then season one or whatever, or the first year comes out, and then there's a download piece you have to buy for like $40, and then another 6 months go by, and there's another thing that you have to buy for another $40, and then they just say, okay, now Destiny's gone, we're gonna do Destiny 2, and then they start the whole thing over again, and somehow completely miss everything that made Destiny 1 great in the initial launch of Destiny 2, and then
Yep.
they had to work back up to that again. And I just feel like in that specific example, games as a service went to fund an incomplete game, and that could be said the same with like Anthem. Anthem comes out, I think the gameplay in Anthem is amazing, but they really fell short on the story. Like they really fell short on the story. And it's BioWare. They're a story company. Like they're an RPG company. They've made their bread and butter on things like Mass Effect and Dragon Age, and to have them come out with a game that just completely misses on that level was super disappointing. And
I guess it like your example of Destiny and having all the DLC and the seasons and whatnot for $30, like whatever. Like that's a good like parallel to like EverQuest releasing 2 expansions every year, right? Same type of thing. You're paying more money to get these updates to the game that allow you to get to the end game, right?
and on MMOs, at least for EverQuest and like World of Warcraft, that's on top of a monthly subscription,
Right. Yeah.
which I think is kind of crazy. And
I feel
I
like
mean, 14's doing the same thing too, though.
like the big distinction between those and like the DLC versus expansion is like Destiny was what, like you could probably beat it in like a week, right? Like MMOs, like there is end game content, but you never really beat the game, right? And you're playing with what 24 other friends, or EverQuest was what 72-man raids, and like I don't know I don't know I don't know where I was going with that, but stuff and things.
Well, go ahead, Gaston.
It also kind of sucks. Like for me, in the case of Destiny, because I played the first Destiny, I played it quite a bit, and then I got Destiny 2 when it came out. But there's only so much money that I'm willing to put into a game to keep playing it and to keep current on it, and the fact that essentially you have to pay for Destiny 2 twice to get up to the current story and the current end game, for me that's too much of a cost on it. I feel like games as a service, its place should be more along the lines of like something like Apex, where either it's free and you pay for cosmetics or season pass or whatever they do with it. I haven't played Apex, but I know they have some kind of season pass or something.
Yeah.
Or something like Fallout 76, where you buy the game and then you get all the expansions and everything past that for free. But then you can purchase cosmetics and stuff like that in the store, or ESO. Again, you buy the game, you don't have to pay the monthly subscription, you get everything, and then you can get expansions as they come out. And that, I guess ESO is kind of like Destiny, but for me, ESO, the expansions were uh, far longer between them and a lot less expensive than Destiny 2. Because I think Destiny 2 came out, and I think it was, what, a year later, it had 2 DLCs and an expansion, and it was like $80 to get all of it.
Yeah,
Plus,
I think you're
plus
right.
the 60 you had to spend on Destiny 2 itself.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they were both like $40 each or something.
Yeah.
So, one thing I wanted to comment on was Jeff. You had talked about, how you can kind of beat Destiny in like a week, and it seemed like with some of the MMO content, it was a lot longer. And then what happens is like you would get to end game in an MMO, whether it's EverQuest or Warcraft or Final Fantasy or whatever, and then you're basically kind of just grinding for gear to take on like the raids that come out, and all the raid stuff throughout that entire expansion is free, and they drop that content. That's all part of your expansion for the year or whatever.
Yeah, the patches.
Yeah, so they do, and at least I know from WoW that's what happens. They do like patches. They do major patches that releases more raids, and you get more content, and you're basically just trying to gear up for all of that content. And then with Destiny, it's kind of the same thing because it's a looter shooter, and so you're basically just trying to get this best loot as you can. So you're just always redoing the same missions over and over and over again. And then sometimes they have special events and things like that, which kind of keep the content fresh. But I feel like so much of that is, too far in between. It doesn't give, like, I don't know. I've played it. I've never really gotten to end game in pretty much any game ever. And it's always because I just lose interest and I don't have friends to play with and all these things. And I don't, I've kind of resulted in those types of games just aren't my thing. Like that's just not something I'm ever really probably going to get into and enjoy as much as I want to, because I just don't have the time commitment. And anybody that I try to get with to play it, we either don't end up being able to line up our times, like we do for a while, but then we won't be able to after that, and then we just drop off and either one of us keeps playing it or one of us drops out or whatever. So there's all these other factors that kind of impact whether or not me personally can play these types of games as much as I'd like to, and actually play a real raid someday. Thinking now about it, like I still haven't done it. I haven't done it in Anthem. I haven't done it in Division. I haven't done it in any MMO. I haven't done it in Destiny.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is you got me into EverQuest and WoW.
Yeah, exactly. And you've done endgame in all of those games, like hardcore endgame in all of those games.
Yeah.
So going back to just like, games as a service and where maybe they're falling short. I think one place we've already talked about is cost, right? Ongoing cost. So you buy a game, you buy the DLC, you buy a season pass, a paid subscription, whatever the way they're monetizing the game goes. But then what about the idea that they're releasing games that aren't quite finished? Either they're buggy or they don't have the content that they need at launch. What have your guys' experience been in games that have launched that way? Like games as a service games that have launched that way? And what are your kind of feelings on those?
I guess the most experience I've got with that would be Fallout 76. Personally, I felt it had quite a bit of content, and it definitely had enough content to be released, but it definitely did need a lot of polish work on it. And they probably should have delayed it another month or two, maybe even 3. I don't know how long it takes to really iron out some of those bugs and everything.
Yeah.
They definitely should have had a longer beta period on it too, because if I remember the betas that they started a month before the game came out, and they were really limited.
I want to say the private beta, like the closed beta, was like in September, and the open was in October, and then they launched in November.
Yeah, for like the people who bought the game,
Yeah.
you could start in September, but it was only like 3 days out of the week for like 4 to 6 hours on that given day.
Yeah, they had very
Uh,
timed, like beta testing times.
yeah, and I get that Bethesda has not done uh, an online game like this before, and they probably wanted to make sure their servers didn't get super overstressed and whatnot, and I get that, but I feel like it definitely would have benefited from some additional beta testing and bug fixes before release. It's definitely a lot better game now, especially with bugs. There's a lot less, and personally, I never really experienced too many, and none that were game breaking or really detracted from my playing experience. But you did see a lot of people online saying, "Hey, like the game crashes on me every 10 minutes, or it takes 45 minutes for this load screen, or this bug happens and I can't see enemies and all that." Um, I, I don't necessarily know that if the thought process was we release this game and fix it after, or if it was more we've got this game as a service and it doesn't matter if it's buggy because people know it's going to be fixed. I don't know really what the decision was, and it could have been, maybe ZeniMax was just like, "Hey, we don't care. Get it out the door right now."
Yeah.
And that's kind of with Anthem. I still haven't played the release version of Anthem. I played the demo that they had, and even that demo, man, it had some issues.
Yeah, it
Like,
did.
I've got a pretty good computer, and
Yeah,
some of
connection
those load
issues were
screens,
bad.
connection
And the load
issues were
screens.
bad,
And the load
load
screens, yeah.
screens, and you would just be dragged into a load screen, and stuff like that is things that they should have caught in development. But as we saw on that great Kotaku article on it,
Yeah, by Jason
that
Schreier.
yeah, that development cycle was just something that should never have happened. And I think that's probably what happens in a lot of these games as a service is they not that severe, but I think they get the idea and they kind of get a framework of what they want, and then they work out a little bit of the gameplay loop, but then they never quite iron it out until release, and they wait for that player feedback when really they need to get everything ironed out and say, okay, here's the game, and then if get player feedback from a fully working game.
Yeah. It was pretty to me it was very strange in both of those instances, in Fallout 76 and in Anthem. Just
Yeah.
how much, and what's weird is like you had mentioned that the Fallout developers had talked about how we don't have a whole lot of experience in multiplayer games. I'm like, but you guys did ESO, and that's Bethesda also. Like,
Well,
what I understand they're different, but I also couldn't you have got some pointers from the other side, like how
yeah,
much of those teams actually talk to each other?
yeah, and that's the thing, and especially because if I'm not 100% sure on the development cycle for ESO, but I think it was kind of the same where it was the main studio there in Bethesda. Actually, I think they're somewhere else in Maryland, but they're close to Bethesda. We're working on it, and then they hand it off to the Austin studio or a different one of their sister studios
Hmm.
or children's studios, whatever you want to call it. You would think that they would still have that process in place, and from what I know of Bethesda, they're one of the actual good companies, video game companies to work for. They don't have crunch. They don't have a lot of internal HR issues, anything like that.
That's
So,
good.
you would think they would still have the people that worked on ESO originally on that team to give them pointers. Because I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember if you played it on release, but ESO had a lot of the same issues. Where
Yeah, I was in the
people
beta. I was in the beta for
Yeah.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and people were having a lot of issues where they would disconnect, characters would be erased, just all kinds of bugs. So it was kind of the same. So yeah, that it was surprising that they didn't have some more notes on it. But if you want, I don't know, I guess a better example of games as a service family would be Destiny and Destiny 2, because it seemed like they had, I don't want to say the same game, but kind of the exact same thing happened. You know, Destiny comes out, it's okay, but people are pretty disappointed in it. They work on it, get it to where it is, and then they release Destiny 2, and they make the exact same mistakes.
Yeah.
Which that one really confused me, especially from
Yeah.
Bungie. You know, they're pro. They've been at this for how long?
Yeah, exactly. That was pretty weird. Like everybody's like, it's weird. It's like Destiny 2 comes out and they take a step backwards, and it's like, why? Why didn't you start where you left off with Destiny 1? Like same level of gameplay, same level of content and all this stuff. Oh, by the way, Mr. Plow, thank you for the follow. And Mr. Plow, that's my name. My name again is Mr. Plow. I hope that's where you got that from, because that's hilarious.
I don't know what that's from.
It's from The Simpsons, dude.
Oh.
Yeah. So
I was just gonna mention something. Oh, like I think game companies do this, and it's similar to like software development, right? Like we can release a product, and it can be a piece of crap, but we might want to like push it up and out, get it in the hands of our customers, because we're like first to market or something, like something they've never seen before,
yeah.
or like. But like the flip side is like if you want a good game, like you got to get like do an open beta on a weekend, right? You're gonna get so many people coming in and play it, give you feedback. Like do it right. Don't just be like, here's the game. Oh, it doesn't work. Well, thanks for your money. So,
Yeah.
so I'm not a huge fan of that.
Yeah. And I get it. Like it's kind of a, sometimes it's like a shit or get off the pot type thing, or you know, I've been in software development before where we've developed and developed and developed, and we just can never seem to pull the trigger on getting it released, and then like we finally have to, just because like we need to, like there's somebody at the top that's just saying, sorry, you guys just have to release, you can't delay anymore. And
we just had that.
Yeah, and we either have bugs or we don't, and we have to deal with it. And in many of my cases, I wasn't ever dealing with end users buying instances of my software. Usually, it was some sort of an internal release that like my coworkers in another department had to use my software, and so they're just pissed at me instead of instead of customers complaining that they paid $60 for a piece of crap. It's my coworkers complaining that we have buggy software.
Well, I think that's another thing that. Whoa, hello, camera. Let's go. Let's focus. There we go. But I think that's another thing that that kind of makes these games as a service when they release buggy, is that now developers have access to and can get and see a lot more. I don't want to call it feedback. I don't know. They see a lot more of the I guess nerd rage and just the anger from their fans when these things flop or aren't received well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
15 years ago, you didn't see, not everybody is on Reddit posting about some new bug that they found every 5 minutes, or there's not 20 articles a day coming out, because now video games are a lot more mainstream. We have websites dedicated to them, so they get a lot more coverage.
Yeah, and we also you usually hear about the bad stuff, and you don't usually hear about the good stuff. Yeah. So usually it's people going to complain, not people going to praise.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're having a good time enjoying the game, you're not going to take time away to go and be like, some people will, but most of the time you're just going to continue enjoying your game and playing it.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you're having issues with it or not enjoying it, you're going to make it heard because you spent money on this and you want to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah. And really it comes down to, expectation and what we consider like the minimum, like the standard or the minimum bar maybe of what's kind of acceptable. And if you're getting what you expected out of a game, then you're like, okay, this is I'm getting, this is satisfactory. like for me personally, like I probably won't go and like review a product I buy on Amazon unless I'm like kind of um like surprised or extra excited about what I got or how it works or whatever, you know?
Yeah, because you kind of go in with the expectation, and you know
Yeah.
what you're getting.
But like I bought this, it should work, and so I don't need to praise you for it just working, you know? If somehow it goes above and beyond my expectations, then yeah, I might actually go up and say something, and I might be like, "Hey, thanks for this great product. You did a great job," or whatever. Um, Even as a game developer, um, I I still, even as I play games, I kind of feel the same way. You know, it's like, you know, as a game developer, knowing what it takes to make games, and I've only made indie games, so I don't know what it takes to make AAA games, but um, knowing just at that level what it's like I kind of get it, and I wish more people would, you know, go out of their way to say thank you and all that kind of stuff, because it's not easy and it's tough, and it's a piece of art, and it's also sometimes an expression of you know you, and it's years of work, um,
Yeah,
and so when
a lot.
people just immediately shit on it, I mean, I
Yeah,
like, for example, No Man's Sky I think is one of the biggest like comeback stories in video games that we've had in a while. Final Fantasy 14 I think is up there too, with somebody coming, but they had somebody, a whole new team come in and like take over, and a new director, and um, that's pretty that was pretty great. But No Man's Sky, being as small of a team as they were, I feel like they got a terrible shake at the beginning. I don't think they should have released when they did, but I think they had a lot of pressure from Sony to do that, and I don't think Sony really helped them at all as far as like tempering expectations. Um, I think
yeah.
that could have gone a long way to help Sean Murray with the expectations, because I think he was not a great person to be out there talking about it. He was just super excited about his game and his team of 8 or 6 or 8 people built, that was
He needed it.
pretty incredible. Like I pre-ordered it, I played it on release. The game was incredible. Like, yeah, sure, I couldn't play with my friends and I couldn't see other people, and you know there were some initial bugs the first week, but after that it was like it wasn't anything like Anthem's bugs or some of the bugs that
He
I saw in
he
Fallout 76, but I never experienced them. But it's just, and then what they've done in the past 2 years is nothing short of amazing, I think.
I think what really would have helped No Man's Sky is if Sean would have hired a PR person. I
Yeah,
think that would have been the biggest help, because
yeah,
he, like you said, he was excited about his game and went out and went to
yeah,
tell people about stuff. And I'm sure as developers, sometimes you have features you want to put in that just
yeah.
feasibly can't happen.
They just get left on
So
the cutting room floor, and there's nothing you can do about it.
yeah, they may have been like 60% of the way to this feature, so he starts talking about it because he's like,
Yeah,
hey, we're gonna be able to have it, and the next thing you know, oh, actually, we can't do this.
yeah, exactly. But now they just came out with, or they're coming out with, I can't remember if it's out yet or not, but the whole VR release, and I mean, I've got my VR headset here, like I'm ready to go. I got my touch controllers, like I'm set. I'm ready to jump into some No Man's Sky VR is what I'm ready to do. But yeah, it's pretty impressive what they've done, and I think it's a great success story. And people are even asking now, like, can Anthem pull something like that off? And I don't think it's out of the question. I just feel like with all the bad press they've gotten about the work conditions and about the game in
Yeah,
general, and like I got lucky, I won a free copy of Anthem, so like I paid for 2 months of Origin Prime, so I paid basically $30 for my copy of Anthem. Um, and I'd love to come back to it at some point, provided that they polish some things up. But I haven't heard anything about plans. Like everything has been on hold. So
yeah, and they haven't, and I mean, No Man's Sky kind of did this too. They just went like silent, like radio silent, nothing about the game. Both Anthem and No Man's Sky did that.
yeah,
I think the difference is though that No Man's Sky, you can still enjoy it, especially single player. Um, whereas Anthem, it's because it is a game as a service. There's only so much you can do in it until you're just like, okay, I have to move on, and then you just end up ignoring it. And I think, we definitely saw. I mean, something like 98% of the player base disappeared after the first 2 weeks. it was kind of like Artifact from Valve, where after 2 weeks there's nobody streaming it, nobody talking about it, and then
Until all the pornography showed up.
well, yeah, isn't that what always gets people talking about something?
Yeah, exactly.
But and then yeah, like you said, they also have all these articles coming out about just the hell that the development cycle was on Anthem. All this. They have no direction for the studio. They don't know what the game is. They don't know where they want to take it until 3 months before release. They work everybody, 80 to 100 hours. People are literally having to go to therapy sessions because they're so stressed from this game. People are taking weeks off because they're physically ill from working on this game and the stress that it's causing them. I think it just leaves a bad taste in people's mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, any kind of last thoughts about the topic of games as a service before we close this out for the night?
I know we all kind of like dumped on games as a service, but I think they do have their place and they can be good. But it's so far we haven't really seen anything that I would say is a good game as a service. Most of them have been either just horrific releases that eventually maybe kind of fix themselves, or they just kind of are wallet drainers.
So I will say I think Division 2 released really, really strongly. And the amount of content available in that game is still kind of staggering to me. Like Jeff and I are probably 20 plus hours into the main campaign. And like we're still really enjoying it. And there's a lot to do. We haven't hit level cap yet. There's still, what are you talking about? What are you shaking your head for? We're like not even 3/4 of the way through the story. Like, there's still at least another 10 hours probably of story play that we could do.
Yeah, I feel like every time I play that game, I get frustrated with the load times. Like that is one.
That is kind of annoying. The initial load times are pretty crazy.
Yeah, I will say that Apex Legends has been like came off the press like really hot, and like day one you got all big time streamers playing it and streaming it. And it was easily like the number one game played for like the first couple weeks.
Yeah.
And where Apex has fallen is after that. We're like, what else are you guys gonna do, right? We're like, feed me, like, give me something else. So I think Apex released really well, and it was kind of a surprise, a new like battle royale game. They did a lot of things good in that game, but like, yeah, we want more updates, we want more patches, we want more maps, more characters, and where on the flip side, like Fortnite is doing that stuff like pretty well. Like they have constant patches every couple weeks or whatever, different seasons, they change, like the map in itself is like changing, right? So yeah.
No, I agree. Like Apex, I feel like the way they did their release was almost perfect. And the quality of the game that you got out of it was pretty staggering considering nobody knew this game existed until it was released, aside from a few people the week before. But it was pretty staggering, I think. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Gaston?
I was just gonna say I think the difference, and again I keep talking about this. Maybe we should talk about this in next episode. Is crunch, because I think I remember seeing an article specifically from the Apex devs, who's Respawn, I think.
Yeah, Respawn.
Saying that the reason they're not pumping out updates like Fortnite is they want to avoid crunch. They don't want to overwork their workers. Whereas there was recently, again, I think it was Kotaku, Jason, whatever, Schreier,
yeah,
had an article about Epic and just the terrible work conditions that they have the Fortnite team on, because they're, like you said, constantly having content out, constantly having new stuff added and upkeep and all that, and they've got their employees working 70, 80 hours a week.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a balance there somewhere, right? Like I mean, it's supply and demand. Like,
Well, I also think Respawn didn't realize how
gonna
popular
be
they
as
would
big.
be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because basically everybody who was playing PUBG switched to Apex. Like, and it was like even Fortnite players switched to Apex.
Yeah.
Like the
And-
fact that
and-
Ninja and Dr. Disrespect were both playing Apex nonstop for weeks is
Yeah, I
is
mean, those are
pretty
your-
pretty crazy.
Those are your two biggest streamers right now, I would say, or two of the top five. And,
Yeah.
when they hit your game, you know you're getting it.
So yeah, I think it could be another topic to kind of talk about, like, because one of the topics we were going to talk about, but we don't have time tonight, was Are Gamers Entitled, and just this idea of, you know, like what Jeff was saying. I mean, I'm not saying you're entitled, but I'm just saying you brought up a point. It was like, hey, Apex came out of the gate swinging, and then like a month later, gamers are chomping at the bit, like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? We deserve this, even though we didn't pay for the game. Like, you know what I mean? Is that a thing? Is that something we should be cognizant about? Should we be talking about it? Should we be setting better expectations? Because we don't want the dev teams burning out. We don't want the Fortnite devs working crazy hours to maintain this unreasonable cadence that they're trying to push content out at. Also, people are... sorry. I had to ban someone.
But clean out.
But you know, are they? Should the Apex devs be expected to pump out content as fast as the Fortnite devs, et cetera, et cetera? Like, just where should we be as a deal? I don't know. So I think next time, whenever that ends up being, hopefully sometime in August, maybe, we'll try to broach that subject. But before tonight, I think that's going to do it for the Knights of the Gaming Table chat. So thank you guys all for hanging out. Thank you, Jeffy Pop and Gaston, for coming and chatting with us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have some exciting topics next time as well. We'll come up with some cool stuff, maybe some Comic-Con retrospective and any other kind of timely news things are going on. So that's where we're going to end it for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I really appreciate it. We will hopefully see you next time for more Knights of the Gaming Table chat.
See you guys.
Yeah!
See ya.
All right.